Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going through another top 10 countdown. This time I wanted to cover general tips for a specific style of game, survival crafting. These are the kinds of games where you typically do resource gathering and building up a small base. You also must contend with hostiles, which could either be actual players or just computer AI. Often, these games have a food and water element that you must maintain to keep your character alive. These are just a few general tips that help me when playing these types of games. Starting off at number 10, get organized. This is really important when you're trying to build a huge base in a survival game. I find oftentimes if I'm not organized, I end up wasting so much time just trying to find specific items. Depending on what game you're talking about, you should be able to build some sort of storage system that holds most, if not all, of your items. Try to keep similar items close together. Likewise, if you know there are a select set of items you keep coming back to, you should store those items in a convenient spot. Some games, like Minecraft, have the ability to make automatic storage systems. If you're skilled enough with those mechanics needed to build such storage system, you absolutely should do it. Keeping yourself organized will save you so much time in the long run. Doesn't need to be anything fancy, just a few storage boxes with similar items all in one place can make all the difference. Being organized will be super handy for number 9, resource gathering. It's inevitable. If you're playing a survival crafting game, there will be some level of resource grinding required. This is especially true if you want to build a giant castle in V Rising or a huge boat in Raft. Since you know this will come up at some point, take the time to prepare yourself. Before heading out, top off your tools or make additional ones so that you keep your progress going. Clear your personal inventory of everything other than the most essential items. Plan out a sensible route to travel. I generally try to lay out a circular path which allows me to maximize the number of resources I can gather. If you know ahead of time the resource gathering will be a bit long or tedious, plan ahead and have some music or perhaps a YouTube video that you can listen to while you work. Up next, at number 8, base location. When you're just starting out, take extra time to consider your base location. I know I personally like secluded areas that have little or no traffic. However, this can be a bit of a pain if you have to travel long distances for quests or additional resource gathering. Finding something central is likely your best bet for base building. Similarly, when you're building a base, consider the layout inside. Your resources and other valuables should be central. Having resources in the middle will allow you to build outwards without having to run all the way across your base. Also keep in mind when building not to expand too quickly. I've always found myself building small inner bases and then slowly extending my base when I find new materials. Coming in at number 7, crafting and exploring mode. Put simply, all survival crafting games have two distinct modes. One where you are crafting and building, and one where you are exploring and fighting. Keep this in mind when you're playing. If you plan to explore in a dangerous area, keep your hard-earned resources back at your base. Both elements are important to having fun with the game, and balancing the two should be your priority. I prefer to do a bit of exploring and then go out and do the resource gathering. When exploring, take a little bit of time to know where resources are located. If you need a small batch, you can easily gather up a little, but try not to get too caught up in huge resource gathering sessions. This leads to number 6, upgrade your tools whenever possible. As you bring in new material, you should always take a little off the top to build up your current tools. Doing so will make future exploration and gathering more efficient. Oftentimes, the higher tier tools do more damage or gather more effectively, both of which will allow you to be more productive. Upgrading your gear might allow you to simply survive longer, such as the case with Planet Crafter or Subnautica. Getting a larger oxygen tank early on will expand your ability to explore further. Having better gear will also allow you to gather even rarer items, which ultimately is the point of most of the games. Up next at number 5, have a plan. In general terms, this just means if you know all that you want to do is work your way through the story, then maybe don't spend hours gathering resources that you're never going to use. On the flip side, if you intend to build the greatest castle ever, then plan out an appropriate resource gathering session. On the more detailed side of things, once you know what you're doing, plan ahead. If you're trying to build a specific tool or weapon that you know the recipe for, take note of what's needed so that you can ensure that you get everything. Nothing is worse than spending a lot of time collecting items only to find you don't have everything you need. Depending on the scale, you may need to do a bit more math to figure out exactly how much material you might need. If you're extremely nerdy like myself, and you know approximately how much time is required for gathering a specific resource, you could do some additional math to get an idea of just how long the whole process might take. If you know it'll take 2 hours to gather everything you need, but you only have an hour to do it, maybe spend that time doing some light exploring instead. On a related note, number 4, have an escape plan. Whether you're dealing with hungry wolves or actual players, have an escape plan. The last thing you want to do is fill your inventory with valuables only to lose them to a sneak attack. Particularly when you're gathering resources, stop every once in a while and make sure there isn't anything you need to address. Generally, the environment is pretty easy to deal with. Dealing with other players, however, depends on the type of server you're playing on. If you're playing on a peaceful game with your friends nearby, you can afford to take a bit more risk. However, if you know anyone could steal your resources at any moment, protect them accordingly. This also goes into your base, which leads into number 3, defending your base. This goes back to having a plan. You should defend your base in the appropriate fashion. If your base is prone to being raided, plan ahead by building a separate area that will keep your stuff hidden. You could either build a smaller, more hidden area or design your base to best secure the most valuable items. If the game allows for trap building, you should take full advantage. Building traps will keep raiders out. When building traps, you should check for any potential weaknesses. If there is a gap or an opening, players who are determined to get in will find a way. At one point, I had a huge complex that I had built in Rust. When I built the inner workings, I had a single wall tucked away that led right to the very center. Didn't think much of it at the time, but the wall was weak enough, but a player was able to break down the wall and steal all of my valuables inside. Never underestimate what players are willing to do. You will likely never stop every player, but building up your defenses as much as possible will hopefully keep most players out. You could always build a bait and switch. This involves building an overdramatic storage area that actually entices players to break in. All the while, your real valuables are hidden away in some other secret area. This can be risky, so my best advice is to really build up that area, making it look like you've tried every possible thing to secure the building. Closing in at number 2, building to suit your needs. When building, ask yourself, does this base have what I need? If you know you bring back several stacks of smeltable ore, but you only have one furnace, consider adding more to keep up with the flow of materials. It's not a waste of materials to build multiple workstations. In some cases, it's best to have as many as possible. You don't want to spend hours waiting for a few ore to smelt when you could have it all done in a couple minutes. It's also a good idea to build up extras when you have a moment. I find myself building extra weapons and tools and stockpiling them for later. This way I don't have to keep pulling out the same materials to make the same axe 5 times. If you have everything in hand, just make several of the required tools all at once. And finally, at number 1, arguably the most important thing of all is to have fun. I know, this sounds silly, but games are just that. They're designed for us to blow off some steam and relax. Games are meant to be fun, and we should always treat them as such. Don't get too overhyped about collecting thousands of resources if you're going to be bored doing it. Also, don't take games too seriously. I love getting into character when playing, but if you get too invested, you can get a bit too upset about a rated base or lost resources. Having fun should always be your number 1 priority. And with that, I'm going to end this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please let me know down below if you think I forgot anything or if you have any other of your own suggestions. And I will see you guys in the next one. See ya!